Francesco has been talking about software and productivity applications on YouTube far longer than me and has used way more than me, so he has a different level of expertise than I do. However, his recent video about task, planner, calendar app labeling got me thinking, and I don't personally like labels or categories in the first place, but I recognize they are useful to, well, categorize things. But as soon as you draw a line, there can either be a hard line or a blurry line, and I think drawing a hard line in what these sorts of apps are doesn't help the question. Do I need a planner app? Do I need a task app? Do I need a calendar app? I don't think those questions are well posed, mainly because, as Francesco says, the feature sets are getting so close that you can't really distinguish between those categories or labels of apps anymore. There are just affordances or opportunities for behavior in each tool. Francesco responded to one of my questions and said that 50% of the real estate is task or calendar, which is how he uses to differentiate or draw that line. But when I look at real estate, well, a calendar is going to take up more space than a task because a task list is just a list of tasks. So when you're looking at a calendar, you're going to see more of a calendar. When you're looking at a task, you'll probably see more of a task. If you're looking at a combined, well, tasks won't take up as much space as calendar. So I don't think that is a useful metric at all, really, to differentiate between apps. And I use Morgan, which when I'm looking at it now, well, it's a calendar, but when I push space, well, now I've got a task and it's 50-50. So the real estate is dynamic and changes with how you view the tool. But then you could start talking about features of the tools like deadlines, filters, labels, sorts, traditionally in task apps, but we also have them in calendar apps, and you can do them in lots of different ways. Turning on or off a calendar is a type of filter for events. Putting events in different calendars can label them, or you could just add a tag to whatever event it is. For deadlines, when you look at an event, at the end of the event, that is the deadline. That's the end of the time slot. When I look at some task apps, they don't have a deadline separate from the scheduled date. They just have a date slot, and that's it. So like a reminder time, there you go. There's no separate deadline, so you can't schedule it and have a due deadline, whereas in some apps you can, Morgan being one of those. Which is where I look at the tools and ask myself conceptually, okay, what is a task and what is an event and what is a project? In the apps, they're separated traditionally by the code, so in an event you can add a location or a meeting link, and in a task traditionally you can't do that. Why? I think because of code, but conceptually they are essentially the same thing, to me at least, because it is a section of time where I'm supposed to be doing something if I've blocked it out, or I want to be doing something if I've scheduled it for that time, or I need to do something because it's a deadline. There is time that is being blocked out by a thing, be it a task or an event. When I think about a project, it's normally broader in scope than a task, but it is at the end of the day a task that spans a long period of time. So what's really the difference between a project and a task? Well, that's going to depend on each person, but the features, obviously changing with each app, will likely be the same. You can tick it done or not. You can add subtasks, add sub-subtasks, and share those tasks with other people or assign tasks to other people if you're sharing the project. If you're not sharing the project, well, now it's just an internal project with tasks and subtasks. Obviously, then we have notes, but now we're talking about task, project, event, calendar applications, or are you talking about note apps? Or are we talking about all-in-one apps, whatever that means? When think about taking notes, some projects I don't need masses of information. I could just use the description of a calendar event, of a task, or inside of a small project, whatever app it is, description. It just needs to be a couple of words or a couple of bullet points to note down what it is that I need. I don't need a fully blown word editor like Obsidian, like Notion, like, well, Google Keep even to an extent. I don't need any of that for some of the projects, but I would still class them as projects with traditional labels. And this is where I come back to fundamental assumptions of labeling things and categorizing things with nouns rather than from an ecological approach. That's the approach that I take from ecological psychology. We don't use nouns, we use verbs, so processes. And we believe we perceive directly, so we perceive affordances, not things or snapshots or labels. So when I'm looking at a tool, I'm not looking at a tool and going, that's a task tool. I'm looking at it and saying, okay, that's tickable. That time block is tickable. With a calendar app, is it schedulable? Can I put the thing, the block, onto a schedule that I can see the time slots on? Because traditional task apps you can't schedule, but now you can. So now it's not a task app, it's a planner app. I'm not looking at those labels, I'm looking at going, is it tickable? Is it schedulable? And then if I want to work with other people, is it shareable? How well is it shareable? And of course, each of those features will have variations in how effective they are at those things. And that's where I think we look at each app and go, okay, that's effective or more effective than that app at being able to share. So when we look at Todoist, it is more effective at sharing tasks than Morgan, more effective at tickable tasks and some other features than Morgan, but its ability to schedule tasks or events or whatever you want to call them is not as good as Morgan. But that is going to be specific to my relationship with the environment I'm working in. The organism-environment relationship, again, coming from ecological psychology, what is my relationship inside the environment with those tools? Does that tool help me? Yes. Does that tool help me? No. So the opportunities for behavior the tool gives me can help me, but some of the constraints of a tool may hinder me, so I'm going to look for a tool that does XYZ, not ABC. So instead of looking for task app, calendar app, planner app, time management app, I'm just looking for tools that help me behave in the way I want to behave at that time. So I may go from a traditional calendar app to a task app because I need more tickable actions right now. But someone else may not need things that are tickable, they just need something schedulable, so they'll use a traditional calendar app at that point. And this leads me to wanting to ditch all of the labels, the calendar app, task app, notes app, whatever app, and just describe the opportunities for behavior each tool gives. So when someone asks me, I need a task app, I would say, okay, so what do you actually want? What opportunities for behavior do you want? Do you want to be able to tick things off? Do you want to be able to schedule things? Do you want to be able to write and have readable text, long forms of text, short forms of text? What sort of behaviors are they looking for to help them do whatever it is that they want to do in the goal-directed behaviors that they want to portray? But that's my thinking. Maybe calendar apps and task apps do have a dividing line, and if they do, I'd be curious to know what you think they are, whether that's a feature set, a description, or who knows. Let me know in the comment section below so we can continue the conversation.